Hey, what are you painting with? Oil paint? Oil paint's pretty expensive. Yes, oil paint can be expensive. I've thought about switching from acrylic to oil paint, but oil paint is more expensive than acrylic paint. Yes, at face value, oil paint is more expensive than acrylic paint. But that's not exactly always true, fellow artist, and here's why. What you just saw was an incredibly well-acted example of a conversation that I have often about the two main concerns about the expense of oil paint and the expense of oil paint in relation to the expense of acrylic paint. By the way, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Darren. I'm a self-taught painter and filmmaker, and I occasionally like to make videos like this one where I talk about things that I just couldn't really find information on. And real quick, before I dive into this, I do not like speaking in absolutes. This is entirely my experience, and I only like speaking on my experience. This may not be the same for everyone. I have a feeling it will be for most people, but if it's not and you've had a different experience, that's great, lovely, carry on. Let's go. So these two statements, oil paint is expensive. Yes, it's pretty expensive, but guess what? Everything's inexpensive now. At least it feels like it. So when it comes to arts or anything that you're gonna pursue, think of it as an investment. And you probably shouldn't dive into things like oil paint or expensive acrylic paint until you really feel like you're ready. So I'd recommend buying the very cheapest stuff of anything in the beginning until you really realize, yes, this is something that I like doing, and then go make an investment and start buying better stuff. Okay, on to the second statement that oil paint is more than acrylic paint. Yes, at face value, that is true. One tube of oil paint is more expensive than one tube of acrylic paint for the same amount of paint. But there's a catch that I found out, and here's why that statement deserves a huge asterisk. The reason that I think you'll see that oil paint may end up being less expensive than acrylic paint is that it lasts longer and you will use less of it. I actually mentioned that as one of the 3 reasons that I switched from acrylic to oil in this video right here, if you want to watch it. But watch that later, not right now. We're in the middle of something. To demonstrate this, I'm going to give you a little example. I used to waste a lot of acrylic paint, and I mean a lot, an amount that I am not happy about. I would mix some colors, be painting, maybe take a quick phone call, run inside the house to make a quick coffee, and then come back and the color I mixed is no longer usable. So I need to mix more. So to solve the problem, I thought that I would just level up to the next size, which eventually became the next size. And then of course the final boss of sizes. This is more so for white paint. I absolutely fly through titanium white paint. Well, before you know it, suddenly you're spending more and more on paint and buying it more often. Look at even freaking Bob is laughing at me. Now let's do that same experiment with oil paint. For this video, if my hat is backwards, I'm oil paint Darren instead of acrylic Darren. That's how you can easily differentiate the two for this video, okay? That's so stupid. Now let's do that same exact scenario with oil. I'm gonna mix a color, paint for a little bit, maybe take a quick phone call. And what you'll return to is some very usable oil paint, even around 24 hours later. I think you get where I'm going. And something that you may also find that adds to this is that oil paint just seems to go further for you. You're gonna use less of it to paint the same thing. I should actually do this. This would be a good experiment. But if you paint 2 skies on the same size canvas, I can almost guarantee that you'll use less oil paint than you would acrylic paint. Just covers more area and goes further for you than acrylic does, hence needing to use less of it. To summarize, at face value, yes, oil paint is more expensive than acrylic paint. But in the long run, if you paint often and you're not just doing it once or twice here and there, I think you'll see that the math ain't mathin', and that you will end up spending more buying acrylic paint than you would have with oil, based on all the reasons that I just gave you. So if the price difference is what's preventing you from either trying oil paint or switching from acrylic paint to oil paint, I hope this gives you a little bit of a different perspective. And this again is based off of my experience. And all I can say is, I wish I switched to oil sooner. It's been the best experience by far, and I would hear things like this, like that it's expensive and all these other things that I've mentioned before, and it prevented me from doing it sooner, and I couldn't really find any information from anyone on maybe their experience of switching or the costs or whatever. So I hope this gives you some insight. If you were curious about this, have any questions, if you've had a different experience, I would love to hear it. Just let me know in the comments, and stick around, follow along. I'll be doing a lot more videos lately about all sorts of things, from painting to filmmaking. I'm having a lot of fun. Where the hell's my coffee? See what that says? My girl got that for me. Ain't that funny? She's flirting with me in the mornings.